chapter 11 is talking about fiscal policy and the federal budget. As you remember, total expenditure equals 4 parts, which are consumption by households, by individuals, plus investment, spending by businesses, plus government spending, which is purchases by the government side, and plus net exports. طيب, we will talk about the part which is government spending. It is divided into 2 parts. Spending or expenditure is also called expenditures, government expenditures, is divided into purchases of goods and services, and transfer payment. And you know the meaning of transfer payment, which are payments made by the government to persons in not in return for goods and services, but for free. So we will talk about these topics: government spending, taxes, deficits, surpluses, and public debt, fiscal policy, demand side of fiscal policy, which is the Keynesian perspective, and finally we will talk about crowding out. These are statistics for USA for different years from 2000 to 2009. These are the spending as a percentage of the GDP. يعني out of 100, 18% is the government spending. In 2009, 24% of the total expenditure is made by the government. The second side is the tax revenues. Revenues. When we say fiscal means monetary, financial. So the money that comes in and goes out from the government. طيب, الدولة لما تصرف إيش نسميها؟ government expenditure. So money goes out from the government to the public, while government tax revenues, money comes in to government. taxes الضرائب لو تروح من اللي يستلمها؟ الحكومة. والاكسبندتشر الحكومة تدفع لغيرها. طيب, what about the statistics for tax revenues for USA? For example, it is 20% in 2000 and 2009 it is 14%. طيب, we said in this chapter we will talk about fiscal policy. الفيسكال policy تتكلم على money that is managed by the government. Money goes out and comes in, which is expenditures and taxes, and federal budget اللي هي الميزانية. So the budget could be on a deficit, surplus, and equilibrium, or balanced budget. So budget deficit يعني عجز. فالgovernment expenditures greater than tax revenues، يعني الفلوس اللي تخرج من الحكومة أكبر من الدخل، يعني الصرفيات أكبر من الدخل. And budget surplus العكس، surplus يعني فائض. tax revenues greater than government expenditures، يعني الواردات أكثر من المصروفات أو الصرفيات. فهذا إيش؟ surplus, which is a good thing. deficit. طيب, هنا مشكلة معانا إنه الدخل الحكومة اللي من التاكسز أقل من صرفياتها. طيب, إيش بتسوي الحكومة؟ بتسوي شيء اسمه public debt إنها تتسلف من وين؟ من population by treasury stocks. طيب, this is the best state اللي هي balanced budget. So government expenditures equal to tax revenues. هنا equality. الصرفيات تساوي الدخل. فإذا سألتكم البادجت الفيدرال budget could be on 3 states اللي هي deficit or surplus or balanced budget. This is very important. طيب what about public debt? The total amount of federal government owes its creditors. So تتسلف الحكومة من ال creditors اللي هي المانحين. Click so the Bureau of the Public Debt borrows the money needed to operate the federal government. It administers the public debt by issuing and servicing U.S. Treasury, marketable savings and special securities. طيب, what about fiscal policy? So fiscal policy means changes in government expenditures and taxes to achieve particular economic goals. يعني ال changes إيش معنى changes؟ يعني increases or decreases. يعني rising or falling in government expenditure and taxes are one of them. يا أما الاثنين يكون في changes in expenditure and taxes or يكون في تغيير في expenditure only or taxes only. Why these changes؟ ليش الحكومة تفعل هذه changes in expenditures and taxes? Just to reach economic goals such as what? Low unemployment rate, stable prices and economic growth. So we want to reach these goals. We want to have low unemployment rate and we want to have stable prices and we want to have a growing economy. So how can we reach these goals? By changing the government expenditures and taxes, which is called fiscal policy. So from now on, when you hear fiscal policy, immediately you think that this fiscal policy is made by or is managed by the government by managing the money in and out of the government, which is expenditures and taxes. طيب, fiscal policy could be two decisions. يا إما expansionary fiscal policy or contractionary fiscal policy. طيب, من الترم تبع ال fiscal policy expansion يعني توسع أو تضخم. Contractionary تقلص. Expansionary increases in government expenditures and decreases in taxes to achieve a particular economic goals. طيب, expansion نزيد ال government expenditure. إذا زيدنا ال government expenditure إيش بيحصل؟ ال total expenditure يزيد. أو or both. إذا نقصنا taxes، إذا نقصنا نسبة الضرائب، أكيد بيكون عامل محفز لل individuals and businesses to invest and consume more. فلما الحكومة تنقص التاكسز بتزيد صرفياتها هي نفسها، فإيش بيحصل للأجريجيت demand؟ يزيد التوتال expenditure يزيد. or one of them، يا إما increase expenditure only or decrease taxes only or it does the two things اللي هو increase expenditures and decrease taxes. What about contractionary؟ contraction يعني تقلص في الإيش؟ في الأجريجيت demand. If we want to do contractionary step, the government will decrease the expenditures يعني purchases بتنقص purchases and or increases in taxes to achieve particular economic goals. Increase in taxes لما تزيد التاكسز إيش بيحصل؟ التوتال expenditure يقل. طيب, التوتال expenditure نحن قلنا يتكون من 4 مكونات: ال consumption وال investment وال government spending and net exports. طيب, ال government spending كيف يزيد وكيف ينقص؟ ال government spending يزيد بزيادة إيش؟ بزيادة ال expenditure أو زيادة الإيش؟ التاكسز. طيب, you will understand this by showing it in this graph. Look here, how government spending and taxes, fiscal policy can affect the demand side of the economy, that is aggregate demand. So a change in consumption, investment, government purchases, or net exports can change aggregate demand. And you remember this from chapter 8. إنه مكونات aggregate demand or total expenditure, these four: consumption, investment, government purchases, and net exports. So a change in these، إيش معنى change؟ يعني increase or decrease in these four parts can change aggregate demand and therefore shift the aggregate demand. Shift it to the right or to the left according to the change in these four parts. So for example, we are taking this part اللي هو government purchases. A decrease in government purchases G decreases aggregate demand and shifted to the what? To the left. This is logical. And increase in government purchases increases aggregate demand and shifted to the right. So what about taxes? Change in taxes can affect what? The consumption, investment, or both. يعني هنا شوفوا هنا direct effect. هنا direct effect. الgovernment purchases تأثر على aggregate demand directly، ولكن taxes تأثر على إيش؟ تأثر على aggregate demand indirectly. يعني تأثر أول شيء على من؟ على consumption والinvestment، وبعدين consumption والinvestment يأثر على من؟ يأثر على aggregate demand. يعني for example decrease in taxes increases aggregate demand and shifts the aggregate demand curve to the right. How؟ لما يحصل taxes نسبة الضرائب تقل، ليش aggregate demand يزيد؟ لأنه أصلا consumption والinvestment بتزيد. والعكس صحيح، إنه لما taxes تزيد لما taxes تزيد إيش يحصل؟ aggregate demand ينقص. So an increase in taxes decreases aggregate demand and shifted to the left. Why? Because an increase in taxes decreases what? Consumption and investment. طبيعي إنه لما تزيد نسبة الضرائب الكونسومشن الاستهلاك والinvestment والاستثمار يقل، لأن الكوست أصلا يزيد على من؟ الانفسترز.